Hello, welcome. Today we're going to be looking at Extradimensional Crisis, the set that just released, and I'll be giving it a quick review and a rundown of all the cards, and just saying what I think might be good. And yeah, let's get into it. So the grass types that they've added are really powerful, and honestly, I think that's like the biggest, gonna be the biggest meta shaker are these new grass types. Pedal a little bit, kind of just filler cards here. But the new Decidueye is really interesting. Um, Being able to deal 70 damage to just anything on the board is kind of crazy. I mean, there's a lot of just like basic support cards like Shaman that you could just are just no longer safe on the bench. Also, can just snipe Oricorio. It's hard to say if this is going to be better than Decidueye EX. I think both of those are strong cards, but this is definitely really strong and definitely will see some play. Uh, and then moving on, Buzzwole EX, obviously very strong, and I think that's going to be like the biggest new meta card, like that we're going to see the most in the tournaments from this new set. 140 HP, you can bring it up to 170 with the Leaf Cape. Bug Beat, 120 damage, and it can't use it again the next turn. But there's a pretty easy way to get around that with Celesteela. You can get the free retreat, or it's a free switch, and then you can still retreat that turn. So if you switch Buzzwole for like one of these Ultra Beasts, Pheromosa or Gartana, then you can switch out of them and bring Buzzwole back in to do a big beat again for 120 damage. So kind of unstoppable. Yeah, I think Buzzwole is also kind of like the best one, best card situated with all the Ultra Beast support cards. Some of the other ones like Blacephalon and Circuitry, like I don't think you're really going to be using them with any of the cards like Lusamine or the Celesteela. But I feel like it that was more built for like the Buzzwole, Pheromosa, Carcana. Like that's what it wants you to use. Blacephalon will work well with Lusamine, I think. If you change one Blacephalon into another, you can get it set up pretty fast. But it doesn't really have much synergy with any of the other Ultra Beasts. And I think even then, if you do like the two Blacephalon strategy, I think you might need another card in there just to clean up. Perhaps if your opponent's not is not using EX Pokemon. And I'm not sure what that would be yet. Maybe it would work well to use Blacephalon while you have a Charizard or Incineroar in the back. But I think that could be good, definitely, especially against Buzzwole. The water types just seem like a failure here. Like I mean, I really see like no reason to use any of these. They're just there to be there, I guess. Um, but the electric types are really interesting. New Luxray is cool. I'm not sure. I think I would still prefer the old Luxray, which is able to deal 120 damage to like just any Pokemon on the board. But this one is interesting with its ability. It reduces damage to itself by 20 damage, so that's cool. Can be a little bit more tanky, and 90 damage for 3 energy is not bad at all. Um, Blitzaline is interesting. I mean, actually, it's not that interesting. Blitzaline is okay, but I don't think it'll see much use. It's kind of like Electrode from Genetic Apex, but with one retreat cost instead of zero. Um, Emolga, just another kind of filler card. Tapu Koko is interesting, and I talked about this in my other video. I'm really excited to use this with uh, Genetic Apex Raichu because you can use Lieutenant Surge to bring energy from the bench to Raichu, and then Raichu does 140 damage and discards that energy. But Electric type hasn't had much good like ramping. So with Tapu Koko, it can ramp itself, and then you can use Lieutenant Surge to bring energy to Raichu. And they've actually added a new tool card that um, is also good for like moving energy around for electric types. That's the electrical cord. which says that if the electric Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot and is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, move two electric energy from that Pokemon and attach one energy to one energy each to two of your bench Pokemon. It's kind of wordy, but basically, if your electric type Pokemon is knocked out, then you can bring that energy to the bench. And I think that could be good for like setting up the Shining Revelry Pikachu EX. Um, but of course, this requires a Pokemon to be knocked out in the first place. So in general, I feel like my call with the genetic Apex Raichu, I think that's going to be right. Fingers crossed on that. We'll see. And then so Zergatry and Zeraora. Zergatry is kind of whatever, but Zeraora is interesting. The ability it does only work on like your first turn of the game. So if you don't start with this card in your hand, then it's kind of just like I'm not gonna say pointless, but it's just like a pretty basic card. If you do start with it though, it's pretty good. You can attack with 50 damage on like if you're going second on your first turn. Um, but since it's just not reliable, unless you're doing like an 18 trainer zero aura, like I don't think that this is going to be all that useful. Kind of disappointed with the psychic types. These all seem like pretty filler Pokemon. I do love the Clefairy art though, just chilling on the swing. Love the art style. Um, but yeah, Trevenant's just like too much energy, too little damage, no ability or special thing going for it. Chinotic is interesting, where you can put a random Pokemon from your deck into your hand. But like for taking up two deck slots and then you have to find Mortal, find Chinotic, and then use the ability, like that ability is going to be pretty useful in the early game, but by the time you get Chinotic up, or you're going to have games where you can't get Chinotic up until later, and Mortals are kind of like a sitting duck on your bench. Like I don't know, it's kind of a lot just to find cards. If I'm really concerned about that, I'd rather have like a Pokemon communications. Uh, Interesting fighting types though. There's some cool ones here. Metachan is okay. I mean, one energy for 50 damage is pretty good, pretty nice. Um, but Claydol is an interesting one where it heals, or sorry, it blocks healing for both you and your opponent. So it kind of like mess you up, I guess. But fighting type isn't really about healing, so I think it's good that it's placed in this one, and especially because like Rampardos decks have a bad matchup against grass type decks, and grass type decks are like notorious for having a lot of healing options. So this can help even the playing field a little bit for those Rampardos decks if you're struggling against like Meowscarada and Decidueye. And then we have Rockruff and Lycanroc EX. The old Rockruff is better, but you can just use that instead. Lycanroc EX is okay, I think. Rampardos is just better because it's with rare candy, like stage one versus stage two doesn't matter as much, and Rampardos can do 130 damage for one energy, so and it doesn't have to discard. Um, so I feel like most of the time you'd probably rather use that, or I guess not being a fossil is nice, and not requiring rare candy is nice, but then it's an EX, so it's 2 points. So there's pluses and minuses to both. I could see you using, there's reasons for using both for sure, but I think Rampardos is still probably a little bit better. Passimian's cool, and Passimian's actually might be better than Passimian EX. With its attack, it does 40 damage, but if there's another Passimian on your bench, you do 40 more. Uh, so 2 energy for 80 damage on a basic is pretty strong, especially, it's fighting, so you could always use Lucarios or whatever. So that'll be fun to play around with. Then we have, oh yes, then we have Palisand, which does 90 damage, and it has that effect where the defending Pokemon can't retreat. Honestly, I feel like we see this on a lot of Pokemon, but I don't think that it's really that great of an effect. I don't think it warrants the 4 energy cost here. I think that's a little bit insane. I'm not sure like where they got that from. Um, but yeah, like we saw that with Delmise, and it's like I don't know, it's a good effect on say a dark type where poison is kind of like a big part of the dark type, but uh, with the fighting type, it's I don't know. I guess it's okay, but and it's like stopping your opponents from doing things, so you know that's always good. But I think let's see, I'm pretty sure that would not stop um like Celesteela's ability because this just says switch. It doesn't say anything about like reducing retreat costs. So I think Celesteela could get around that like not being able to retreat. So like just not a great effect, and the damage is decent, but for 4 energy, I don't think that that'll be good. So then we have the dark type, and this has some really interesting cards. I'm really excited to play around with a lot of these. Uh, the Alolan Meowth and Persian line is kind of whatever. I do really like the art style for one. I think those are really nice cards. Alolan Meowth is actually more interesting than the Persian. It can discard a random Pokemon tool card from your opponent's hand. That's really good if you could start with this, but I mean, if you're going first, then you can't attack, like you can't attach energy, and if you're going second, then I mean, chances are your opponent already put a tool on their Pokemon, so I'm not sure how good this will really be. And of course, if once the tool's on the Pokemon, then it doesn't do anything, and you kind of just have to use it and hope that they have a tool in their hand because you can't see their hand. I don't know. It's not very good, but it's fun. And I think one thing that this whole set has a lot of is just like messing with your opponents, and we'll see it later with other cards too. It's just there's a lot of cards that are fun, but not necessarily good. Moving on, Crocodile. I think that this one, on the other hand, is actually good. Um, so it's a stage two, and for 3 energy, it does 90 damage and has the effect flip 3 coins. For each heads, a card is chosen at random from your opponent's hand. Your opponent reveals that card and shuffles it into their deck. Um, yeah, this this one feels like it would be really annoying. Of course, it's a little bit luck based, but with 3 coins, I mean, most of the time you're getting at least one card is being shuffled back into that deck. So, and the damage is good. I mean, I think this is going to be a fun card to play around with for sure. Nihiligo, I'm not sure if that's how you're supposed to say it, but this is a really good one as well. Makes poison deal 10 extra damage. It doubles the poison damage. There's a lot of ways to get around poison, so um, can be counterable, but it makes those poison decks a lot better. I think this is going to be a staple for any like Clodsire deck or a Lowland Muck deck. Um, and there's a lot of cool Pokemon that like work with poison, and this just makes them better. So that'll definitely be fun to use, and it might fingers crossed might make poison a little bit viable. Might see it in some tournaments or something, but who knows? Guzzlord EX is like the ultimate meme card with the attack that does 30 damage and has the like Team Rocket Grunt effect where you're discarding energy from your opponent's Pokemon. Um, like I said, like I don't see this card being necessarily good, but it's gonna be fun because like the thing is half the time you're just gonna deal 30 damage and have no extra effect. But when it does hit, it's gonna be a really fun card to use. But I could be wrong. But I don't think that this is going to be like any kind of top tier meta defining card. And then the last two in the dark type are kind of whatever. Um, Poipole and Naganadel. Uh, Naganadel evolves from Poipole, and it's just like a 1 energy attack that poisons. I mean, I think like obviously they have to have some way to poison in this set, but in other sets there were other Pokemon that apply poison like way better through abilities and stuff. So I don't think we'll really see this being used that much. So next we have the steel type, and starting with Alolan Doug Trio EX. I was not expecting this card to be an EX, to be honest, but looking very majestic there. Its attack, triple headbutt for 3 coins. This attack does 60 damage for each heads. It's okay, but I think, a lot of these like point flip cards are never going to be super meta because they'll be great when they work, but when they don't work, then it's kind of useless, and you'd rather just use something that's good all the time rather than great sometimes and completely useless other times. And then we have the Aggron line, which is cool. I really like this Pokemon. I think it's cool, but unfortunately, I don't think that this card's going to be that great. Giga Impact for 4 energy. It does 150 damage, and during your next turn, this Pokemon can't attack. Um, and 4 retreat cost, 160 HP, so pretty nice HP. But yeah, I mean, I think immediately my mind goes to using Solgaleo to do the 150 damage and then get the free switch with Solgaleo. But I mean, then you have like 2 stage 2 Pokemon, and you still have to get 4 energy onto this thing somehow. So I mean, I just it's kind of like Torterra. I'm actually not sure how this compares with the damage and health and all that, but it reminds me of just Torterra because it's just not feasible to ever really get this thing to work. Then we have the Thera Thorn, which its ability basically makes it like Druddigon or Rocky Helmet. And I think it's interesting. It has an attack for 3 energy that does 70 damage. Druddigon, if you played during Mythical Island, you'll remember for sure how dominant that was. But with, once switching out, like, became less powerful, you couldn't hide things on the bench as easily. And Rocky Helmet became, common in most decks. Druddigon saw far less use after that. But maybe the fact that this guy can attack could give it some use. But I mean, honestly, I really don't think so. 3 energy is kind of too much for just like a wall, and it's not doing that much damage. I guess if you put Rocky Helmet on top of that, that could be nice. But it also doesn't have that much health, so it's not like it can really. It's not going to be taking too many hits. Uh, like 1 hit from Buzzwole, and this thing's dead. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think that'll be that great. And honestly, I don't think Stakataka will be that great either. Its attack for 2 energy does 40 damage, and during the next turn, it takes minus 20 damage from attacks. Interestingly, there is a item card that kind of does like a similar thing. It's one Beast Wall where Ultra Beast takes minus 20 damage from attacks if your opponent hasn't got any points yet. So like if you use this with Stakataka, then you're getting minus 40, and that's also an item. So you could use I forget what it's called. There's a support card that does for steel type where they take minus 20 during the next turn. So I mean, you could get up to like minus 60 damage, but I mean, like that's a lot of effort. You're probably not going to be able to get all these things in your hand at the same time. But like, and then you get minus 60 damage, and great. That's like maybe you're completely getting 1 hit, but then I don't see this being that great. Like, I don't think that reducing damage is a great effect in general. So then we have the colorless types, and honestly, I think there's a really interesting bunch of Pokemon here. Starting off with the Stoutland line, this one was really surprising, and I'm really excited to use this actually. So its ability, as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, attacks used by your active Pokemon cost 1 energy more. And like 1 energy doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean that is, yeah, it's a big difference, and just by having it in the active spot, that's really good. And its attack, 2 colorless energy for 70 damage. Like that's a pretty good low cost attack. Like you could get this thing in the active spot quickly and just prevent your opponent from really doing anything. Um, so I think this card could be really good. Um, really excited to use this one. And then we have Beware. Again, one of these kind of like game cards where it's not really good, but the few times that it will work, it's going to be really fun. So super powered hug, put 2 coins. If both of them are ahead, your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out. That's pretty crazy. And it costs 3 energy, by the way. Pretty crazy effect, but like gonna work almost never. And you need to put 3 energy on this, and then you could use this attack 3 times and not get the conditions right. So not gonna be great, but it's gonna be fun to use for sure. And like the one time where you actually get this to work, it's gonna be a whole lot of fun. On the other hand, Oranguru is just kind of like a worse version of the other old Oranguru, which had an effect where it increased the cost of your opponent's both their attack and their retreat, which was pretty good. I mean, I don't think it really saw much use, but it was interesting. It was fun. This one's just kind of like boring, kind of just basic 100 HP, 70 damage. The Still Valley is interesting. I was kind of expecting a Still Valley EX to be honest, but it is still cool. Brave Buddies does 50 damage, and if you played a supporter card, this attack does 50 more. So I mean, you're getting for 2 energy, 100 damage. That's like pretty solid. And then also, of course, you could use what is it, Giovanni or Red to get even more damage. I think that this is pretty good and just stage one, but like you can get this set up pretty early. Um, yeah, this will be a good one to use. And it's colorless, so I mean you can just put into anything. Um, and lastly, the last Pokemon that we have to look at is Celesteela, which we've looked at before because it was in the trailer, but it allows you to switch your active Ultra Beast with another Ultra Beast. And mainly I think that this is going to be used with the grass types because they're kind of the only Ultra Beasts that feel like they're like have any synergy really. I guess Naganadel and Nihilego are both like do things with poison, but I don't know. I don't think that Naganadel. I don't think it's going to be used in poison decks that much. So yeah, I think Celesteela will be really good for the grass type Ultra Beast deck. Not really used for much else. So then we come to the item cards, and we talked about Beast Wall. So I'll just move on to Repel, which is it's an interesting one. It's kind of like Sabrina, where your opponent switches their active Pokemon to the bench, but it only works on basic Pokemon. So it's a little bit more situational, but it's an item as opposed to a supporter. I feel like generally I'd rather have Sabrina just so that I can use that whenever. I mean, it's really useful. Like especially, I mean, I think the two best uses for Sabrina are in the early game to maybe get a basic Pokemon in that like has low HP that could just easily kill. And I mean, this will be good for like that. And then the other time Sabrina is good is in the late game where maybe your opponent only has 2 Pokemon left, and you can KO the one on the bench, but not the one in the active, and you could just Sabrina that one on the bench out. And this would only work if that Pokemon's a basic Pokemon. So I don't know. I feel like there's pluses and minuses to both, so I can see the argument for either one. But I think Sabrina will be better. Or I mean, I don't know if it'll be better. I think Sabrina will be the one that I will use, just because I know that there's going to be times where Sabrina would win me the game, but I only have a repel, and I'm going to be kicking myself that I have a repel and I can't use it. Electrical cord we talked about. Yeah, I think that'll be that'll be good with like there's a lot of good like electric ramping options that are introduced. So a fan of that. I think wait, one thing I did want to mention too is that when you're moving the electric energy, it doesn't say that you have to move it to an electric Pokemon. So you can move that to any type Pokemon. Of course, the Pokemon that was knocked out has to be electric. But that's an interesting little tidbit there. So you could use it to ramp like colorless Pokemon or Pokemon with colorless attack costs as well. Um, Beast Sight is interesting. Originally, when I first looked at this, I realized it was a tool. Attacks used by the Ultra Beast this card is attached to do plus 10 damage to your opponent's active for each point you have gotten. So that's good. It's, sometimes going to do 10, sometimes 20, sometimes 0. The problem, I guess, with this is that if you have points, you're already winning. So then it's like, well, why do you need to do extra damage? But I mean, I don't know. I think just because you have points on the board doesn't mean that you're winning. Like, one, it could be tied, and two, I mean, you could have 2 points. You could be up 2 points and still lose the game. Um, that the points don't necessarily indicate like always who's going to win. So this, I think, generally is good. And then also, obviously, you can use this with Red or with Giovanni. Those cards haven't been seeing much use recently, but you could use that. I mean, with Red and this card, then you could get plus 40 damage on this hand against EXs, which is like pretty crazy. Right, then we have Gladion. So pretty simple. Just put one random type null or Sil Valley from your deck into your hand. Um, yeah, I think that's gets a thumbs up from me. I don't, not too much to say on that one. It's good for Sil Valley decks. I think the one thing though is that like I wish that it was used for more cards. Like I'm not sure exactly who Gladion uses in the game other than type null or Sil Valley, but like um what was it? Team Galactic Grunt kind of has a similar thing where you bring a Pokemon, but if it doesn't just have to be type Null or Sil Valley. There's like there's a couple Pokemon that it could be. I wish that they did that with this because this just is such like a narrow card where it's like if you're using type Null or Sil Valley, then you can use this. Just completely useless. Looker, another card that's in some situations completely useless, and that is tournaments. So this makes your opponent reveal all the support cards in their deck. Supporter cards. Sorry. Which I guess is good for like ranked, but then in tournaments you have a deck list, so you know what your opponent is using. So kind of useless. And even in, I mean, I don't know. I guess in ranked, it's good to know if your opponent has Mars or Cyrus. But I feel like usually, like judging by what deck they're using, you can kind of figure out which support cards that they're running. But of course, there's always variation in that, so that's good. But like I don't know. I feel like deck slots are so limited and there's so many good item cards and support cards that I feel like I wouldn't want to waste one using this, but I don't know. It could see some use. I could see it being used in like ranked. And lastly, we have Lucamine. You can use this card only if your opponent has gotten at least 1 point. Choose one of your Ultra Beasts. Attach 2 random energy from your discard pile to that Pokemon. And it's okay. I mean, I feel like a lot of these also sorry, a lot of these Ultra Beast cards don't necessarily synergize with each other super well. Like this one feels like it's built for Blacephalon, but I don't know. Like maybe also Guzzlord to get energy onto that for like the 4 energy attack is pretty heavy. So yeah, I could see it being used for that as well. But um um but like my overall thoughts on this are that I like it. I like the cards that they introduced. I feel like it's probably not my favorite set that they've released so far, but I think that there's a lot of interesting ones to have fun with. And overall, like I said, there's a lot of like meme cards, and I feel like with the design of Ultra Beast is crazy and out there, and I feel like they kind of went with that in some of the designs of the cards, like Crocodile Gear or Beware. It's like kind of just like has some zany, crazy ability. And also, it's not listed here, but the Ultra Necrozma EX, where it has some like crazy attack cost and discard 5 cards from each person's deck. Like, just kind of completely out there. And I think that makes for some fun cards. Not necessarily some good cards, but some fun cards for sure. Overall, I think I'd give this set like a 5 out of 10. Uh, has, like I said, has some really interesting cards that I'm excited to use. But I mean, it feels like a lot of filler in there. I feel like a lot of these uh, like items and support cards not super big on. For one thing though, all of the like art rares, whatever you call these cards, the 1 stars are really nice, especially the Meowth, Celesteela. So that I mean, all of these are really cool, and I love the 2 stars as well. I know the people have varying opinions on the shinies, but I think they're cool. Um, but I feel like when you compare this to like Triumphant Light and Mythical Island, just had like a overall stronger showing. I don't know necessarily how much this is going to change the metagame. I think Buzzwole will be meta. Maybe people will use Decidueye instead of Decidueye EX. And hopefully I'm right about the Tapu Koko to Raichu deck. I think that one has potential. Look out for that one. But yeah, I feel like this isn't going to be a huge meta shift, but it'll give us some fun things to play around with for sure. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and thank you for watching.